Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Baliganj Mahavidyalaya, I, Devishri Banerjee, welcome all of you to the international webinar titled Motivating the Youth in COVID-19 Pandemic, organized by the IQSE and PG departments of Baliganj Mahavidyalaya. We all know that today's youth are tomorrow's innovators, builders, creators, and leaders. In today's time, when everything stands still due to the sudden jerk from COVID 19, the youth have to face the most of it. In general, the youth is in a transition phase. We all know that. A phase from where they transform from education to employment. A phase from where they transform from financial and individual dependence to independence. COVID 19 has put a big question mark on all these transformations. In this situation, I'm sure today's webinar will be extremely beneficial in enriching all of us with illuminating thoughts from our speakers and guests. Today we have with us Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, Vice Chancellor, Sister Nivedita University, Professor Dr. Manjusa Tarafdar, Pro-Chancellor, Siacom Skills University, Professor Dr. Saliuddin Ahmed, former Pro-Vice Chancellor, BRAC University, and Professor Shormishta Banerjee, University of Calcutta. Now, I would request our Principal Sir, Dr. Shukumal Datto, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me a pleasure that IQSE and Postgraduate Department of Commerce and Bengali of Navabaliganj Mahavidyalaya organized such an appropriate and relevant international webinar, which is very much important and essential for the young generation of the present day, who have been searching a way out from the COVID-19 pandemic situation, which is still existing throughout the world. The topic of the webinar is motivating the youth in the COVID-19 pandemic. In this international webinar, first of all, I welcome guest Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, the Vice Chancellor of Sister Nivedita University and former Vice Chancellor of MIT University, who has accepted the request to be the chief guest of this webinar and agreed to share his valuable views to get the your or speakers. Secondly, welcome a guest of honor, Dr. Manjusa Tarafdar, the Pro-Chancellor of Siacom Skills University. Professor Tarafdar is so sound and so efficient in administration that though she joined this university as the Vice Chancellor, the concerned authority promoted her from the Vice Chancellor to the Pro-Chancellor. I do believe that Professor Tarafdar shall share his expertise as an efficient administrator in such a high level, as well as academic knowledge on her original subject, education, among the young and other participants. Then I welcome Professor S. Ahmed, former Pro-Vice Chancellor of BRAC University, as the keynote speaker of this international webinar. She has implemented capacity development projects, exchange, and PhD programs with universities of USA and Australia. We are very happy that Professor Ahmed, being the expert on this subject motivation, has agreed to our proposal to be the keynote speaker. Professor Ahmed at present resides in USA and in the morning at 9:30 a.m. is ready to share his expertise to motivate the young generation through this webinar. Now, I welcome Professor Urmishta Banerjee of the University of Calcutta, who is an eminent researcher with international reputation on women entrepreneurship and women empowerment, along with other management subjects. She has received several fellowships from USA and working on US-India and UK-India collaborative interdisciplinary research projects. Professor Banerjee will act as the moderator of this webinar. Throughout the world, COVID-19 pandemic drastically changed the mode of education from face-to-face to, that is, from offline mode of education to online mode of education. So, the young generation has to adjust themselves to the online education, though in many developing countries like India, a major percentage of students are unable to adopt the online education due to their financial crisis. On the other hand, the young job seekers are also frustrated in the COVID-19 pandemic situation. In the awkward situation, how the young generation will overcome the crisis, our renowned resource persons will motivate the participating youth from India and abroad with their expertise and knowledge. Last but not least, I especially welcome a huge number of participants, students, youth, teachers, whose active participation with effective interaction, I believe, will make this international webinar a grand success. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would welcome our chief guest, Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sister Nivedita University. He has been former Pro VC academic, Calcutta University, and former VC of Amity University. A wonderful teacher who started his career as a lecturer in Department of Chemistry at Jogomaya Devi College in 1981. He obtained his bachelor's degree from Presidency College with a major in chemistry, master's in science in biochemistry, and a PhD from the Bose Institute, Calcutta. Professor Chattopadhyay has a research experience of more than 33 years, during which he has visited numerous places in India and abroad. He also received several awards, accolades, and distinctions. He published more than 130 research papers and 6 book chapters. 25 students obtained PhD under his direct supervision, and 10 more students worked under his joint supervision. Sir, today we are eager to hear from you.
Good evening to everybody. Thank you, Debostri. Let me first thank the principal, so my friend Shukamol, because I find that Navobaliganj Vidyalaya organizing a program and I am not been invited. It's almost not being there. He always try to get me, and I love to see the college developing under his leadership and continuously developed in a really great way. College itself started under this leadership of Professor Shukamal Datta from the day he actually joined as principal, and he did almost a lot of different things in the university, in his college actually, and started the PG programs. And the IQAC and the PG program both are actually organizing this international webinar today. I must thank my colleague from US, ex-Provisi, who at this early time is with us and will definitely give very important informations in his keynote as a keynote address. My friend Manjusha, the Pro Chancellor of CCOM, as well as my very, very, I don't know what should I say, almost like my student, but very important colleague of mine, Professor Shorbishta Banerjee, whom I admire always for his dedication, motivation, persuasion, as well as the way she actually tried to do things in the university. And these are the things I find that is very important right now if we consider this, when you said motivating the youths in COVID-19 pandemic. Before I go to actually tell my thoughts in very short, I just want to say something which I always right now saying. You know that nature had to rethink that the designed human being has no longer remained human. It has bypassed all tests and has replaced the original body, the mind, and the soul. So we are therefore put to test, and that test is called the corona test, wherein we have to go back to our roots, realize the values of ourself, the family, the society, the nation, and the globe as an integrated coexisting unit, lest we all have to perish. And I think the most important motivation from this particular time is we have to pass the test of integration. During such a short period of time, I could find that the whole world is coming together. Everybody is fighting against the same enemy, and that enemy is not big one. It's micro. You cannot see it. It is only seen under electron microscope, but that is making havoc. We have so much of political, we have so much of socio-economic impact of this particular war against the virus. Is very interesting to find it out. But on the other hand, if you look at education should lead and not follow. It should equip us for the future and not keep us chained to the past. It must be the domain of the greatest creativity and not be the slave of habits. If education has to help usher in tomorrow, it cannot be afraid of change, and thereby it's becoming very, very important. They must very rightly mention that are we preparing our future students for this scenario, for making them all the different types of decisions which are based on dashboards. In the era of digital revolution, it is a significant focus on automation and technology based problem solving is actually forced all of us from humanities, art, social science, science, technology, everywhere to set up a new curricula. And that curricula must actually accept this new normal situation. We have to design in such a way so that we are going to be more problem solving along with the basic understanding of the subject in the domain. We have to rethink, we have to recreate the curricula. Before this pandemic, you know, that education 4.0 has been introduced. But all this education 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, everything I find that if we look at, the policies are there, implementations are not there. That happens also with 4.0, where it has been mentioned that it is more with respect to the hands-on, with respect to the understanding with the social, industry, and everything. But what is actually happening? But now, the COVID-19 actually pushed us to such an extent. Industries are coming forward to help the education. Education is going to the industries that how we can do together something. And this better understanding of the cross-functional processes are becoming very, very important. We have to understand, my dear students, for the future, we have to entrepreneurship mindset have, and we should actually have the mentorship, the collaborative assignments, the different types of projects which should be of teamwork, and the teamwork is going to be very, very important thing. The concept of the global virtual teams are also going to be very important. And we have to actually try to work across the time zone, culture, as well as our language. And this empathy tendencies amongst all of us for being a good human being for the society is one of the most important part of this. Now, today's seminar, I just want to mention there are a lot of different debates are going on regarding digital divide and everything. See, whenever there is a change, there are different problems. We find the problem and we have to solve it. But because of the problem, we cannot actually make ourselves back to the square. We know the digital divide is there. So, how to resolve the digital divide? We have to give up a full force to resolve this issue, and how to do it very quickly from the government, from the private, from everywhere sector. So academia, I think, being the best benefited the most from this new normal situation. My friend Shuranjun is telling me from Jadavpur University, BC, that there are a number of Chamber of Commerce, they're coming forward for providing the smartphones to their needy students in Jadavpur. They approach to those chambers. So in that way, there are different ways actually we have to find out how to resolve this issue. Now, this has given shape to new type of education which can be beyond the classrooms. The new normal has made it clear to the academia that it is high time that we should think about the blended education, a mixture of online and offline, and the classroom education is going to be supplemented by the online education. So this combination can do wonders in the education and same time make education inclusive and accessible. That's our responsibility, that how we could make it accessible to all people percolating various strata. The academia industry relationship will become stronger as more and more industries outsource their learning on these projects. The industry would now focus in commercialization and production to achieve the economic of scale. The academia would have to an online education with qualified instructors to ensure that the student maximizes their learning experience. And the simulated labs, the virtual practicals, would give them a very important aspect along with the theoretical approach. Contrary to the picture now, most of the institution would own their own digital education, must try to develop their own learning management system, the initiatives, and if necessary, by outsourcing. The academia will also host entrepreneurship cell on a mandatory basis, which involve faculty as well as students, funded primarily by the academia itself and in some cases by industry and external funding agencies. The academia would be more student centric. So far, we are following the pedagogy which is teacher centric. Now we have to change our pedagogy to the student centric in these coming years and would be more research driven education. So, to end, I just want to say in a bullet form that we have to set our small daily goals which will make us that how to be productive and how to achieve our goals. So we have to progress on our data cleaning, setting smaller goals, and tackle it every day. The second point is to carve out the time in your day for work and for relaxation and hobbies. The important thing is that you can dedicate a chunk of your day to work and then keep your work out of your relaxation time. And that's why everybody said that there should be a gap between the classes. The gap is for the quiz, for the test, for assessment, for all different types of things. Thanks to the online platforms, which allows you to work with friends virtually. You know, the Pomodoro sessions, based on the Pomodoro technique, prioritize working for 25-minute bursts with 5 minutes break in between. When the study session ends, your 5-minute break begins and take the time to chat together until the next study session starts. The third point is the schedule virtual get together with friends. Just like today, we are having friends together. I could see Bunjisha, I could see Sharbishta, I could see Shukamal, Debosri, and the Professor Ahmed also from United States. And these virtual meets are actually becoming very important. The social distancing can be the hardest aspect of this pandemic, but we have to find out, we have to say that social distancing does not mean you have to totally say goodbye to a social life. Schedule virtual get together with your friends and have them often. The fifth point is staying motivated can be near impossible when your mind is fitted with anxieties. No work technique is going to keep you motivated when stress is unmanageable. And there is a lot of stress, we can find it out, which is going to help you actually to get out of this particular motivation spirit. So avoid that. You try to actually spend very little time to listen the pandemic news and try to follow only the correct news. There are a lot of fake news out there. The sixth point I want that you should be highly productive. Some days you may not have such ability to focus, and that's not to be expected. Nobody's life is normal right now. You may find that you have good days where you are highly motivated, get through work, and bad days also. And thereby, I think seventh point, stay physically active. Follow the different types of online exercise classes. Stand up, relax, meditate. This will help you to stay fit, reduce tension, and maintain a healthy body. And lastly, it's very important that eating nutritious food and keep yourself hydrated. Good nutrition is crucial for health, particularly in times when the immune system might need to fight back. And that's how you have to prioritize the fresh foods and it's a good time that you don't have any scope to eat a lot of junk foods that will help you. So there are a lot of positive aspects of this particular situation, and try to have utilize it best. And I'm sure this particular period is only important with respect to your positive attitude, your positive mentality, and your positive way of thinking. And you can really fight with it. And if you all actually try to fight it together, I'm sure that this pandemic is actually helping us to develop us to make progress in a much faster rate than what we used to do. Thank you everybody for the listening. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the very informative presentation. Not only informative, a very positive presentation. We will definitely try to stay positive in this time of pandemic. Now, I would like to welcome our guest of honor, Professor Monjusha Tarokdar, Pro-Chancellor, Siakam Skills University. Belonging to a very traditional family, she was an excellent student from her childhood days. She obtained a gold medal in her Masters in Education from Calcutta University in 1976. She also completed her PhD from Calcutta University in 1988, for which she received a lot of appreciation from abroad. She started her teaching career as a lecturer in Khidirpur College in 1981 and become a reader and HOD in the same college, where she worked till 2002. She brought about several reforms over there. In 2002, she was appointed as the principal of Muralidhar College, where she served till her superannuation till 2012. After her retirement, also, she kept on serving to promote education amongst the students in West Bengal. On International Women's Day 2017, she received Nari Shakti Samman Award from Honorable Governor of West Bengal for her contribution in education and society. She authored several books both in English and Bengali. Now, as a pro-chancellor of Siakam Skills University, she is continuing with her endless services towards the development of education and the system. Now, we are eager to hear from her about her views on today's situation. Ma'am, I think there is some problem with the audio. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Uh, Ma'am, the microphone button is showing on mute mode. Kindly unmute that button. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, still it's not audible. Ma'am, kindly increase the volume. Ma'am, it's still on mute mode. Ma'am, kindly try to increase the volume of your gadget. No, ma'am. Ma'am, it's still on unmute mode. Mute mode. Please try to unmute it. Yes. Now it's on unmute mode, ma'am. But still you are not audible. Uh, no, ma'am. Ma'am, I think somehow the volume has reduced. Ma'am, are you using any headphone or microphone? Yes, ma'am. Then make it gadget free and yes. Ma'am, now switch on the mute mode, ma'am. Your gadget is on mute mode. Please unmute that. Ma'am, this one. So, ma'am, your microphone is on mute mode. Kindly unmute that. I think there is a bit of connectivity problem also. My sincere apologies to my participants. We all know this is a common problem that we face. We are trying to resolve it. Please bear with us. Again, my sincere apologies to my participants. We all know this is a very common problem we face nowadays, the network issue with the gadgets. But this is how we have to move on. Ma'am will be joining us shortly. Without delaying further, we are so moving on to the next part. Uh, I'm sure the audience is keenly waiting to listen from our keynote speaker. The session will be moderated by Professor Shormishta Banerjee, Department of Business Management, University of Calcutta, an excellent teacher and an eminent academician. She is an ex-Carmelite. She received President's Guide Honor in 1982, a PhD from Calcutta University, Fulbright scholar, cost accountant topper, and a globetrotter on assignments. We are blessed and we are really grateful for such an eminent personality to be with us today to moderate the session. Ma'am, I would request you to take the charges from here.
Thank you so much, Debasri. And I definitely wish to acknowledge my gratitude to Navobaliganj College Principal Shukamolda to have given this opportunity to be able to talk in a platform, though virtual, where two of my previous bosses are present. I definitely wish to convey my regards to Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, who was the Pro-Vice Chancellor of University of Calcutta and on various occasions has shown his immense confidence in my academic abilities. I'm also grateful to be able to share the dais virtually with Professor Salahuddin Ahmed, who was also my boss when I went for a visiting faculty assignment in BRAC University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. So, without going in for more of the formalities, I wish to set the context for Dr. Salahuddin's keynote address, which I'm sure the audience is looking forward to. Well, when we imagine ourselves in this situation of Corona and COVID 19, to me, it is like a psychosocial tsunami. When the tsunami struck, the world changed. But that change was more geographical. The change hits people's lives and livelihoods. But here, the COVID has affected us not only our livelihoods and lives, but also our social beings, our psychological get up, which Professor Chattopadhyay has very clearly mentioned that we have to be strong not only in body but also in mind and spirit. Disasters have happened in the world. Humanity has always overcome them, and I'm sure we will overcome this too and very fast. The disasters which we have is there in recent memory is the tsunamis of Odisha of Japan, the health emergencies like the Surat plague, the Ebola virus break in Africa. None of these have become any less important in human history. Therefore, I believe that we will overcome the problem of COVID and humanity as a race will go forward. But then, how are we responding to emergencies? When we talk of emergencies, what I wish to share with you all, especially the youth in the audience, is that it is important for all of us to think of how we recover from disasters because that is what history is teaching us and that is what we will learn from history and go ahead. It is resilience. And resilience is a way in which we are connecting with others and getting up and moving forward. The most resilient organ, I will use this word in Bangla, which Professor Ahmed also understands, is trino, যে কোনোদিন দাবিয়ে রাখা যায় না, ঘাস, দুর্বা. So resilience is however you are trampled upon, you have the ability to stand up again and to recover from the shocks that may have affected your life. But how can human beings be resilient? How can we overcome? Because we can overcome easily only when we have a strong social network, only when we have each other to support us. When such programs are organized, Professor Chattopadhyay very clearly said that it is because his friend asked him that he came for this seminar. I'm sure it is because we all have known each other, and it is our common network that is enabling us to support each other. So it is important to remain uh, connected through these social networks, however, virtually. It is important in any kind of emergency to have people with you. Even if you don't have bottled water, you can live on dirty water. But if you have people to share dirty water with you, you will be able to overcome. So these thoughts bring me to the discussion that research has shown that when natural calamities, biological calamities have struck populations, only those pockets which have very strong cohesive networks have overcome much faster. I will quote to you a study by Aldrich about the tsunami effect in Japan. When in different prefectures in Japan, the ones which had very close knit social networks, they could face tsunami better and death rates were lower. We also have example of the tsunami's effect in Tamil Nadu, where comparing two districts, the one district which was more strong in community bonding, they distributed their food and ration supplies in a much smooth and effective manner. So we find that only when people are closely knit with each other that we can overcome such crises. And therefore, I speak to you suggesting that it is the capital that society gives us is what will drive us to overcome the crisis. So the motivation that comes from each other, the motivation that comes from society is called, in the words of terminology, if I use a jargon, is called human capital. Professor Ahmed is an expert on human capital development, and he will share with us ideas on how human capital will enable us to develop ourselves as well as to develop the community around us. So with this, I will uh, take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Ahmed to you, who will finally give the main deliver the main address. Professor Salahuddin Ahmed has been a perfect gentleman and a professor, if I may add, before his formal biography. It's a very enriching culturally as well as academically biography, and I will summarize it for you. Dr. Salahuddin Ahmed worked with the world's largest private development organization, BRAC, in different capacities in 1979 to 2004. He was Deputy Executive Director of BRAC. In these 25 years with BRAC, he had in-depth and meaningful experiences in poverty elevation through comprehensive strategies, microfinance, education, human resource development, organization development, and most importantly, the dynamics of NGO involvement in participation of national and international development. Dr. Ahmed was a Fulbright scholar in 2004 when he taught in USA in two different colleges for a year. He was also Pro Vice Chancellor BRAC University from 2005 to 2009. During these years, he was involved in leadership, policy making, and institutional building of a newly founded university. As Pro Vice Chancellor of the university, he not only shaped academic policies but also taught students of the Masters in Governance Development course. In 2009, he was appointed the Chief Technical Advisor of International Poverty Reduction Center in China, Beijing. Dr. Ahmed had been involved in capacity building of IPRCC, research and training of international participants of this institute. Dr. Ahmed has several publications, case studies, academic papers all over the world. His case study on the social entrepreneurship organizations of China has been published in international journals. He has not only published academically, but he is a regular writer for the Daily Star Bangladesh and the Star Weekend magazine and the Star Campus. After returning from China in 2012, he served as the editor of the Daily Star Bangladesh for 2 years. Dr. Ahmed has been teaching as adjunct faculty in not only Bangladesh but in different parts of the world. His currently is based in Dallas, Texas, and he teaches Bengali, Chinese, and has students from all over USA, Canada, Singapore, and Bangladesh. He is also involved in certain translation activities. Educationally, Dr. Ahmed did his bachelor's and master's from Dhaka University, and thereafter he did his PhD in development economics from Ukraine. His MBA is from one of the renowned Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines. In addition, he has done long courses in Harvard Business School, in advocacy in Washington, as well as in the different countries that he has visited. He continues to learn from all his experiences. I would be honored to share with you that one of my life's best learnings is from the life of Dr. Ahmed. So, over to you, Dr. Salahuddin Ahmed, who is not only the Pro Vice Chancellor, but I repeat, a professor and a gentleman. Dr. Ahmed, please.
Well, thank you very much for Mr. Banerjee. I think that was a brilliant introduction. I never received such introduction from anyone in any seminar. And I'm really grateful to you for giving me such an honor and introducing myself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Kolkata. Of course, this is not evening here in Dallas, Texas. It is now almost 10:30 a.m. in Dallas. Okay, and let me start by saying thank you very much, Novo Baliganj Mohabidyalaya, for inviting me to your very important and timely webinar, okay, on the pandemic and the youth. I'd like to give my special thanks to the college principal, Dr. Sukomal Dotto, and also to Professor Shormishta Banerjee of Kolkata University. They have really motivated me for this presentation. I'm not a great public speaker, but sometimes I do seminars. So take my presentation with a grain of salt, because I have limitations in English. My English is all mixed up. It's British, American, and Russian, and also Chinese. So I have all kinds of accents. So I hope you understand my English. Thank you all the participants who are here today. And I thank the chief guest and the special guest for your presence. So it is my great honor, privilege, and pleasure to be able to take part in this webinar. Thanks to the internet that we are able to communicate across the world. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing, really. So today my topic of discussion is motivation. You see, throughout my life of teaching, I have taught motivation to maybe hundreds of thousands of students, and also colleagues in BRAC and BRAC University, and also internationally. So the challenge is, how do you really motivate others, especially in this present unprecedented situation of COVID-19 or corona pandemic? So as Professor Chattopadhyay rightly said, we are under a corona test now, how to survive in this crisis. So initially, I'll touch upon the pandemic and its effects on the people and economies of the world. Then I will discuss about the problems of the youth and try to answer the following questions. Okay. Number one is, what is the problem of the pandemic? Number two, how are the youths affected? And I think Professor Chattopadhyay touched on it, and I'm with him on this, and I'll not repeat what he has said. So what problems are they facing? Okay. Number three, how can we address these issues and problems of the youth? There, I think Professor Chattopadhyay has given some excellent points to consider. And how do you motivate the youths to learn and understand the pandemic? Finally, I'll talk about my learnings from the theory of motivation. Okay, I hope I'll not take more than 25 minutes. So how do we, particularly the teachers, parents, elders, and the youth's peers, motivate the youth to learn from this crisis and take advantage of the opportunities arising out of this pandemic? It's a very difficult issue, but I think we can deal with this if we understand the problems and our social existence. So I will then talk about learning from the theories of motivation and my professional and family experiences of motivating people, and say how you could utilize these in your professional and personal life. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, let me try to answer the questions. Okay. What is the problem of the pandemic? We know that COVID-19 is the illness caused by a novel or new coronavirus first identified in Wuhan, China, in late 2019. As my wife and I lived in China for about 4 years, I understood that country, the people, and their culture a bit more. Okay? Because unless you live in a country, you don't really understand the people's culture and their country. You cannot understand it by visiting. You don't really get into the societal dynamics. Okay, so COVID-19 is one of the most severe health problems faced by the world. It is most severe, I would say. There was Spanish flu, I know it happened, but it was not as extensive as COVID-19. No other disease has spread to so many countries and affected such a large number of people around the world. Millions of people are being affected, and the most vulnerable are the elderly people. People like me, above 60. Hundreds of thousands are dying. There will be a very long-term fallout of this pandemic. The problem is very grave. I think we more or less know about the seriousness or serious nature of the problem. So I'm not going to the details, the technical details. I will concentrate on the problem related to the youth, which is the topic of my discussion. Before I go further, let me talk about some basics. One is, what are the differences between pandemic, epidemic, and endemic. Most of us more or less know, and so we know that not all infectious diseases are created equal, though often they are mistakenly or interchangeably used. Okay? The distinction between the words pandemic, epidemic, and endemic are often blurred, even by the medical experts. It is because the definition of each term is fluid and changes as the disease become more or less prevalent. Conversational use of these terms might not require precise definition. It is important to know the difference to help you better understand the public health news and appropriate public health responses. That's why it is required to define them precisely. An epidemic is a disease that affects a large number of people within a community, population, or region. That's an epidemic, okay? A pandemic is an epidemic that is spread over multiple countries and multiple continents. Okay, that becomes a pandemic. Endemic is something that belongs to a particular people or country. That's endemic. Something is endemic to that country. COVID-19, for example, was an epidemic in Wuhan. Okay, the geographical spread turned it into a pandemic. Okay, endemic is a constant presence in a specified location. Okay, something that belongs to a particular people or country, as I said. For example, malaria is endemic to parts of Africa. Okay, ice is endemic to Antarctica. Okay, so you can understand what the endemic is. A simple way to know the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic is to remember the quote-unquote P, the letter P in pandemic. Why? I'll explain. But P basically means that a pandemic has a passport. Okay? A pandemic is an epidemic that travels. And that is what's happening in this world now. Because of the travel, I think this disease spread all over the world. It may have started in Wuhan, but it has spread to all our countries across the world, and it has gone to Europe and America and Latin America. So you can imagine the expense of this spread all over the world. So that's the basics I was talking about. Now, in a recent study, I think the same study we studied, Dr. Chattopadhyay and I studied, World Economic Forum has mentioned that the minutes and months matter most to the young people during and after the COVID-19 crisis. Okay, the study has shown that more than 80% of young people, which are in millions, will be at risk at home. Okay, therefore, these millions of young people will require substantial and pressing support from every one of us to overcome these problems. Okay, such support should be made accessible to the youth as quickly as possible. We don't have any time to lose. We have to start now. If we started yesterday, it would be better, but let's start. So the top 4 concerns which this study has shown of the problems of the youth are as follows. One is increased mental health problems. Okay, the young people have mental health issues. They are reporting worse mental health following school closures or being no longer able to access mental health support. This is one. Secondly, missing from education. With schools only partially open and the youth centers mostly closed, a large number of young people are currently not engaged in school activities and have limited or no access to youth work. Okay? Even when schools reopen, there will be many persistently absent or not in education, employment, or training. Very difficult situation. Then at risk at home. This means life at home is fairly monotonous, especially for the active young people. It is difficult for the young to keep active and busy. There is an increase in TV and online games and other unnecessary activities. There are a lot of unnecessary activities going on. Okay. The young are also not having any physical activities, which is detrimental to our health. It has been observed that there is a rise in domestic violence at home. There are different studies which has happened in different countries, and it has shown that domestic violence has increased. And then economic insecurity. Our economies and the people are going to be in economic insecurities. There's no doubt about that. And we see the signs of that all over the world, including our countries. As a result, there will be a reduction in employment and income. Criminal activities may increase. The youth will be frustrated and will find it very difficult to cope with these issues. So, what should we focus on to minimize the harms being done to the young people? What should we prioritize? How can we address these issues and problems of the youth? There's a Chinese, I know Chinese. As I said, we were in China for 4 years, and I learned Chinese. In fact, I was teaching Chinese in Bangladesh. Even now, I teach online. So there's a Chinese word for crisis. The word is Wei Ji. This is the word. Wei Ji means, in English, crisis. This word has two parts. One is Wei, and the other part is Ji. Okay? Wei means danger. Okay? And Ji means opportunity. So the Chinese believe that opportunities can be found in a crisis. As we understand from what has been happening in the last 6 months, life of the people has gotten disrupted. And it is especially true for the youth. So we should look for opportunities in this pandemic crisis to alleviate the mental, social, and economic pressures faced by the youth. We should motivate the youth to look for newer opportunities, okay, and keep themselves busy and get involved in positive activities. The youth should be correctly informed and educated about the nature of the pandemic. I stress the word correctly because a large number of rumors are circulated in the internet and also through the word of mouth. We should avoid those. Don't take everything to the core of your heart. There are a lot of things going around which you need not pay attention to. I would like to say one important thing, and that is we are all using the term social distancing. I don't know, in social distancing, the term has become pandemic. Everybody is using it. Somebody may have started it, but it's now pandemic. All are using it. But I have a different viewpoint on this concept of social distancing. I would like to propose not to use the term social distancing as we use it now. Let us use the term physical distancing instead. Okay. I say this because at this time, as Professor Shormishta Banerjee was saying, and also Professor Chattopadhyay was saying, at this time, we need more social cohesion than distancing. We should meet the challenges of the pandemic through our social capital. Very important. Relationships, the connections, the understanding of the society and the groups, very important. So, but I mean, I understand that we have to keep our physical distance. So we have to do that, and it can also be virtual. We can do social cohesion through get-togethers or sharing from each other, and also it can be virtual, right? But it's important. Social cohesion important. That's why I don't like this terminology, social distancing, but I would like to propose that we use physical distancing than social distancing. So physical distancing and stay at home are becoming the norms for us, right? We've seen it for the last 6 months, and this may continue. This may continue. I think it may continue. Different discussions say different periods, but I think for the next couple of years at least, this will continue. So then I will not repeat that because Professor Chattopadhyay has rightly mentioned about setting small daily goals, carving out time for work and relaxation, and work and meet and learn virtually. This is very important. And let me give you an example of this. So my experience here after I came to USA, I came to USA only 3 years back. I was always in Bangladesh, except for my PhD and for my teaching in America. I came out, and also I studied in Philippines for a year. So I was out of the country, but mostly I was in Bangladesh. Okay. So when I came to US, people at our age, find it difficult to survive in a society like US, because number one, you have to be mobile. Number two, you have to learn technologies. As Professor Monjusha was struggling with the technology, technology is fine as long as it operates. If it doesn't work, you have to go physical. Physical distancing has to be managed. So I was thinking, what should I do here? And it came to my mind that because of this online teaching thing, which I had been exposed to earlier when I was in America, I thought that why don't I, and I also met many people in the US, especially in Dallas, who have children, but they don't speak Bangla. Okay, they didn't learn Bangla at all. They speak fantastic English, but Bangla was zero. That gave me the idea that can I start an online course in basic Bangla for the children? And I started, and I got very good response. In fact, the Association of Women in Texas, Bangladeshi Association, they have opened a school depending on me and my wife. So we are teaching students. We were physically teaching for the last 1.5 years, but then because of the pandemic, we are now teaching online. But I have started another thing is that individually I can teach anyone who is willing. So I'm doing that, and I have now 15 students who are going through Bengali courses with me one-to-one. My experience with Bengali is that BREC has a network of primary schools in Bangladesh. They have 50,000 schools all over the country, one class, one teacher schools. And this has been going on since 1982, okay? And I was part of it. And I know this technology very well. So I'm using BREC books and also using the methodology of teaching Bangla online. So this was a new niche in teaching in this crisis time. Okay, so it was like a new profession for me. It rejuvenated my energy and my efforts. Okay, after teaching graduate and undergraduate students for so many years, now I'm focusing on children, the future of this world. I tell you, this is enormously satisfying for both me and the students. Enormously satisfying. And also the parents. The parents are saying that, oh, you're doing a good job. They're now learning Bangla. Okay. And Professor Chattopadhyay also mentioned about prioritizing your physical and mental health. And lastly, he mentioned that be happy with not being highly productive right now. But we cannot be highly productive right now. So you have to be happy with what we can achieve. Okay. So now I would like to mention about my experience in teaching and managing people for the last, I think, 35 years almost. One theory of motivation which motivated me a lot is the theory of American psychologist Abraham Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs. I'm sure management people know this theory uh, more than me. Okay, Professor Banerjee teaching management, so she must be knowing this theory quite well. Okay, so the theory was proposed by Professor Maslow, Dr. Maslow, in 1943. Okay, 1943, and was fully expressed in his 1954 book, Motivation and Personality. I've gone through this several times. And you may remember the 5 stages of Maslow's theory. 1, psychological needs: food, water, shelter, right? I'm just repeating it because it's refreshing your knowledge. Okay. Safety needs: safety, security, everybody wants that. Belongingness and love needs: intimate relationships and friends. Esteem needs: prestige, feelings of accomplishments. We need that. And I think everyone needs that. Everyone, whether he's a villager, a poor person, a rich person, whoever, needs this esteem needs. And the last was self-actualization, right? Achieving one's full potential, being what you wanted to be, including your creative activities. Studying and learning this very relevant theory even now, and then from my own 30 plus years of experience in managing people in diverse cultures and environments, I have my own interpretation and came up with some basic human psychological needs. Basic. And if these are not fulfilled, your physical needs may be fulfilled. You may have cars, televisions, houses, everything. But even though your physical needs are fulfilled, if your basic psychological or human needs are not fulfilled, you may be frustrated and demotivated. And this is true for everyone, from a child to an old person. So, interpreting the theory of Maslow and making it more understandable and simple, I have identified 4 basic human needs, 4 basic psychological needs. 1, everyone wants to live. We all want to live. Okay. The interesting part is that we want to live indefinitely. We don't want to die. এই ধরনী ছেড়ে আমি যেতে চাই না, right? In my case, my father, he died at the age of 75. He suffered a lot from cancer. You know, for the last 6 months of his life, he was completely bedridden. He was in pain, he was in excruciating pain and was suffering a lot. It was intolerable. And my mother, that's how my respect for women has increased manifold. I saw my mother taking full-time care of my father. This was humanly very difficult. Then at the end of 6 months, my father passed away. It was extremely sad for the family. I mean, you can understand, you can realize when you lose someone near and dear you. Okay. So I sometimes rethink about my life, and I think that with this physical situation and with this life, I will live more or less, if we don't have any problems, serious problems, till 75, comfortably. And I want to die without giving trouble to my wife, my children, and my relatives and friends. So I would like to die at the age of 75 and have a peaceful death. Okay? But the interesting part is that if you, or maybe Professor Sharmishta Banerjee, asks me at the age of 74, not many days left, not many years left, when I'm still able, she may tell me that, Dr. Ahmed, you have to die next year. Okay, so you get ready. I will say no. I don't want to die. So no one wants to leave this beautiful world and the people around you. Nobody wants to leave that, I say that, I said that, but now at this age, I don't want to die. Okay. Second human need of everyone is we all want to love and be loved. The problem with this need is that we all want to be loved more than love. Okay? But, and we are very selfish in this respect. We want to be always loved, instead of giving love. Okay? But love is a two-way traffic. It cannot be a one-way traffic. If you love someone, someone has to love you, right? If someone doesn't love you, you don't love that person, or you don't enjoy loving. Okay. So the suggestion is that love more than be loved. The more you give, the more you get. You can find examples from your families, among friends, among students, among colleagues, among relatives. You can find these examples everywhere. How everyone wants to be loved, Thirdly, everyone wants to be recognized. You want to be recognized, I want to be recognized. I'm not recognized. You are all looking at me and listening to my lecture. So I'm recognized. Dr. Sukamal and others have recognized me. It's a great, great achievement, right? It's a great feeling of being recognized. So we all want to feel important. There are many experiences which you are aware of when in a family or workplace, one is ignored and not recognized. When that happens, she or he becomes demotivated and less productive. You don't want to work in an environment where you are not listened to or given due importance. This also goes for the students and teachers. You see, I read a book, I think it was named a long time ago. I read a book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, by Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educationist. He said in that book a very important thing, and I recognized it, and I also tried to emulate. He said that there is no teaching without learning. Okay? And we all believe that a teacher shapes and molds his or her students, right? We believe that. But if we really try to think in depth, on the one hand, the teacher shapes and molds his or her students, but the students, in the process of learning, in the process of attending your classes or your teaching, the student also shape and mold a teacher. I have found it throughout my teaching career. You learn something new from the students, but you have to accept that. Many teachers don't like that. Okay, but there's no teaching without learning, and there's no teaching without research. Both are very important, right? Even in a family, you'll observe how a child wants attention from her or his parents and other family members. You can see that every day, how a child wants importance. Whether he is 3 months old, I have a nathni, 5.5 years old, and a nathi who is 4 months old. I can see that both of them want attention from their parents and us, the grandparents. Okay, so that's another important issue. Lastly, the fourth one is everybody wants variety in life. Variety, okay? Monotonous work is not motivating. বৈচিত্র্য দরকার, তাই না? বৈচিত্র্য. See how our people in factories such as assembly plants, garments factories, Bangladesh is famous for garments industry, and working on the computers day in, day out. This is highly monotonous work. I visited one assembly plant in Philippines. They were making Levi's jeans. My God, there was one woman. She was putting buttons, and everything has become automatic now. So she was putting buttons, and all her movement was, you push a switch, put the jeans pants there, and the button clicks. That's it. She does it for 8 hours. And you see in car assembly plants, say of Tata or Suzuki or whatever, you see Maruti, you see how monotonous assembly plants are. People become too monotonous, tightening a bolt or tightening a tire. So people do get frustrated after doing this kind of work for several years. So we have to find diversity, okay? And also in education, you have to find ways to use different methodologies of teaching instead of just lecturing. We are used to lecturing. For example, the British taught us. The British have changed. We have not changed. Okay, I think we need to change. We need to have different methodologies. It may be case studies. It can be presentations. It can be discussions. All kinds of methodologies to teach students. This gives variety in life. The situation during the pandemic resembles an assembly plant. So we should make varieties available for people, especially in this pandemic crisis. So I have mentioned this last bit on human needs to remind you that when you try to motivate the youth, please keep these 4 needs in mind. I have found this very useful throughout my life, in my family life, in my professional life, everywhere. And it is true for any country, any society, any human being. Now, if you don't use it, it's up to you. It's up to you. If you don't remember it, it's okay. But I tell you, this will help you in motivating others. I can guarantee that. Okay. So with these words, again, thank you very much, Paligon's Nobo Paligon's Mohabidalai. And thank you all the participants who have been patient in hearing my keynote for the last half an hour. And you have been very patient and supportive. I wish you all the very best. Last advice is think positive, you'll be happy in life. Again, I guarantee. Think positive, you'll be happy in life. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Any questions? I'm here.
Thank you, sir. The session was, what to say, it was very informative, very lucid, very motivational, and presented in such a simple and beautiful way. What to say, we are just amazed and truly motivated by your speech today. And I see,
Thank you.
sir, in the comment section, everybody is thanking you. And the simple form you used, I don't see much of questions. I see a very simple question from Raghavapuram. He says he's not clear about the idea about social distancing and physical distancing. So, just a simple question that we have from our listeners.
Well, what I meant was you cannot be socially distancing from everyone. Okay. But to face this pandemic or to face this disease, I think you have to maintain physical distance. If you say maintain social distance, I personally don't agree with that. Okay, if you accept it, it's up to you, as I said. But I think this is a misnomer because I really feel that we need more social capital, we need more social cohesion to solve these serious problems. You cannot do that just maintaining social distancing, and ultimately this may have a bad effect on the society that you become more concerned about yourself, not of the society, right? And that's a danger. So that's what I meant. It's a simple thing, just to understand social distancing and physical distancing.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Sharmishta ma'am again, and I'd like to invite her to summarize the session.
Thank you, Devisri. It has been such a pleasure hearing Professor Chattopadhyay and Dr. Ahmed speak about how we have to keep ourselves positive, because this is something which is really big on our to-do lists now. Usually we live life and work keeps us positive. But now, as both our illustrious speakers have pointed out, that now we have to plan work and plan our entertainment to make sure to keep them apart from each other. Earlier, we had office for work and we had home for settling and relaxation. But now, when we are home most of the time, we have to balance work and play and clearly distinct between the work timings, play timings, work activities, and entertainment activities, even rest. That brings me to what Professor Ahmed said, that we have to prioritize. So it's not only dividing, we have to prioritize what needs to be done at what time. Because if we go to the core of why we are prioritizing, why we are dividing the work, why we have to keep ourselves positive, is because we are under threat. And there is a lot of weakness around us now. Our minds are weak, people are falling sick, and it is a threat not only to society but to each of our families. Our friends are sick, our family people are sick. So, how do we utilize this threat? How do we utilize this weakness? We convert them into opportunities. Therefore, very nicely, if we may summarize that there is a situation which has put all of us, the youth especially, because Devistri has mentioned very rightly that they are in transition from being dependent on parents to being independent. So they are already in trauma. And here comes COVID, and there is much more stress on youth. So this stress can be converted, this threat or the weakness can be converted into an opportunity only by prioritizing and balancing work and play. And what else but Dr. Ahmed's idea of saying the more you give, the more you get. And what do you give people? You give people recognition, you give people variety, and you get all those back in return. I don't know whether Dr. Ahmed is familiar about this in Bangladesh, that there is a mythological festival, that Itur Ghat. That Itur Ghat never gets over. You keep pouring water in it, and the water never gets over. So it is like a container where the more you love, the more love you get in return. And it keeps growing and it spreads around in the community. Therefore, it is very important a time for society, for everyone all across the world. We cannot say in India we are suffering this, in the US you're suffering that, in China you're suffering that, something else. We are all suffering the same. The old are suffering digital divide in one way. The old are suffering digital divide because they don't know how to do the WhatsApp that they want to do. They don't know how to do the Paytm. The young are suffering from digital divide because even if they have a phone, their 3G connection is not working. So the digital divide takes a different form with different people. And that is where we need to overcome these challenges and look for opportunities in, a, in different ways so that we can recognize each other's challenges. And then only we can overcome the challenges that each of us have. And we can do that only when we are in a cohesive whole using our social capital. No amount of money will take me from Calcutta to Texas today. But it is my social capital that I can communicate with Dr. Ahmed over this virtual platform, that I have friends to talk to. I cannot fly to them, they cannot fly to me. So, money, financial capital, is not taking us places. But the only way to look at life positively is to harp on, is to depend on our social capital. And I think the message session today is definitely that let us use our social capital to remain positive, to prioritize between work and play, so that the more we love, the more love we get in return. Thank you so much, Navabaliganj Mahavidyalaya, my illustrious speakers, Devistri and Principal, as well as all other members of the Navabaliganj community. Thank you. Devistri, will you take it forward, please?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to all our speakers. We were a little unlucky today as due to technical issues we could not hear from Professor Manjusa Tarabdar. We missed it this time, but we assure you that we'll make it next time. Now I would request Dr. to take over and deliver the thank you.
Good evening. We are almost at the end of the webinar. This is a pride privilege to get an opportunity to give vote of thanks to the entire audience on behalf of Navabaliganj Mahavidyalaya family. First of all, I would like to appreciate our principal, Dr. Sukamal Datta, for his continuous encouragement to entire
Nawabaliganj Mohammedalah family for organizing the webinar. Thank you, sir. I would like to thanks to Dr. Ahmed for his sharing his valuable expertise to motivate the youths. His lucid presentation will ensure the youth to win the transition barriers. Thank you, sir. I would like to thanks to Professor Sharmishta Banerjee for her excellent moderation and summarization of the entire topic. I again like to thanks to Professor Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, Vice Chancellor of Nivedita, Sister Nivedita University, West Bengal, and former Provincial Academy of University of Calcutta and VC of Amity University for sharing his expert knowledge and in this pandemic situation, how to overcome this situation. He has expressed his views. Now, I would like to thanks to Professor Manjusha Tarudar, Pro-Chancellor of SICOM Skill University, for her active cooperation and excellent deliberation on this, on motivating the youths. See, now I would like to thanks to Professor Devashree Banerjee from Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya for her excellent introduction and total and continuous evaluation of the entire webinar. Now, this webinar is conducted by the IQAC of Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya. Now, the Postgraduate Department of Bengali and Commerce of Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya and our Alumni Association of Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya. Now, on behalf of Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya, I would like to thanks to all participants and the teachers, scholars, and all the audiences, as well as the office staff of the college, whose on behalf of Nawabaliganj Mahavidyalaya for their active cooperation and support in all regards, especially to Tarun Singh, our Secretary of Alumni Association, for his active support and continuous encouragement and continuous involvement to make the webinar a success. Thank you all. And here we are ending the webinar. Thanks to everybody. Devashree.
Thank you, sir. So here we come to the end of this wonderful webinar with the hope and on a positive note that we are able to motivate our youth, and with this today we end the session over here. Thank you everyone. Thank you all the participants and dignitaries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.